Order! Order! You are an incorrigible delinquent at times. Behave yourself, man!
Now, EU leaders are tonight desperately seeking consensus on how best to address the migrant crisis. It's an urgent task, not just because a tidal wave of humanity continues to wash up on Greek shores, but also because the 28 heads of member states need to establish a united front before presenting it to the Turkish Prime Minister tomorrow. And it won't be easy. While the Dutch Prime Minister has spoken of the crisis being curtailed within a month of a deal being reached, his Lithuanian and Belgian counterparts, among others, have questioned the morality and even the very legality of a plan to see all migrants travelling to Greece from Turkey sent back. The BBC's Europe correspondent, Damien Grammaticus, is at the summit in Brussels, and he joins us now. Damien, any sign of that deal?
Well, as we're talking now, the word filtering out is that leaders seem to be dotting the I's, crossing the T's on that consensus, and a couple of crucial things in that agreement. One as legal safeguards to guarantee that any refugee landing in Greece will get a full hearing of their asylum claim before they could be returned. The second thing is dealing with the concerns of Cyprus, which has a very troubled relationship, obviously, with Turkey, and trying to progress Turkey's membership bid for the EU while keeping Cyprus's concerns in mind as well.
And Turkey doesn't even recognise the Cypriot government, does it? So that's a fairly big stumbling block. Are there any others?
Well, the biggest issue actually is, I think, is going to be in the morning. If the leaders wrap up this deal as we're hearing now, in the morning the Turkish Prime Minister will be here and it will all be put to him. Now, he will have to sign off on it as well. And that may be when you see some of the most difficult negotiations, particularly, I think, over the issue of the EU saying that they would take around 70,000 refugees from Turkey directly to the EU in return for all of those being sent back to Turkey. That may not be acceptable to the Turks. They've said they don't want to become a holding pen for huge numbers of refugees who are heading for the EU. So there are many, many people who may not be covered by this agreement. And there are still difficult talks ahead.
Damien, many thanks, and a late night ahead for you, I fancy. Staying with the EU, the Polish Deputy Prime Minister, Mateusz Morawiecki, was in London earlier this week and was interviewed by Evan Davis, who began by asking him how worried he is by the prospect of Britain voting to leave the EU.
I hope a lot that Great Britain will stay as part of the European Union, because the times are not easy. We have some geopolitical turbulence around us. In particular, when you look at the eastern borderlines of the European Union, they are not as secure like the western ones. We have the situation in Ukraine and in Russia, and it's better to be part of a bigger family. So I don't think...
Can we talk about the migrant crisis, because you've talked about these geopolitical differences. Obviously there's a potential deal with Turkey.
Yes.
It is an agreement that would be taking probably quite a lot of Syrians from Turkey for putting into the European Union, the Schengen zone. And I'm wondering how many Poland is happy to take.
We have a very specific situation because of the war at our border in Ukraine. We actually have accepted 355,000 refugees, not only refugees, but migrant workers, different people. In this figure, we also find many people who probably escaped from the situation in eastern Ukraine. And with regard to the refugees, we also agreed to a figure to accommodate a specific number of the refugees from the Middle East.
What number was that?
7,000.
7,000. For a country of what, more than 50 million people?
Not anymore, like 40.
It's a very small number, isn't it? And I wonder whether you've been much better at defending the rights of Poles to go to Britain, or the rights of Poles to get benefits in Germany.
First, I would love those Poles to come back to Poland.
But you've been very good at defending, if you like, migrants' rights when they're Polish migrants, but you've been very much less...
No, we have migrants coming to Spain and to Italy from Northern Africa. We have people, refugees from Middle East, and we have people from Ukraine. I think the European Union has to take all those three elements of the whole refugee jigsaw into consideration, and we have helped to accommodate lots of refugees from the Ukraine.
When we look at the clash of values, Western Europeans are frankly very worried about some of the things the Polish government has been doing. They're worried about the commitment to what they would think of as core EU values. Does it worry you that there is clearly a division?
There is this split, but the split is obvious. Like, we have been left after the Second World War, and we have not developed for 50 years. It was a frozen economy, some economists say. And we are now catching up in terms of economy. In terms of democratic standards, we are actually up to the standards which are in the Western Europe, and nobody can prove otherwise. Look at the level of corruption, for instance, which is a good indication. Corruption has actually been dropping. It's one of the Poland is on a very strong level, comparing even to the countries like Italy or Spain, which are probably viewed by many Western Europeans as higher standard countries, aren't they?
How long do you think it will be before Poland reaches an income level, a wage level, that means Polish workers will not want to be leaving and going to richer countries of Western Europe?
Well, I hope this level will be able to reach quite soon. Our current predictions for the average salary level in the European Union are around 2030. We are now on the level of 70%, 69 to 70% of average EU. But you don't have to be on 100 not to migrate. I hope it will happen over the next 5 to 7 years.
Deputy Prime Minister, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you very much. Thank you.